Hello and welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. In front of me here we have a brand new Toyota Supra in an absolutely beautiful blue. And today starts a big project. We're going to be doing full paint correction on this and basically ceramic coating everything from the paint to the glass to the wheels to the plastics to the interior. So join me as we get this brand new Toyota Supra absolutely dialed in. Welcome back. Let's jump into it. Before we get into actually starting detailing this Toyota Supra, let's talk a little bit about this car, and I also want to talk about what we're really going to be covering in today's video. This car was actually purchased by one of my customers that picked it up in Louisiana. He lives here in Colorado. He'd been waiting for his Supra for months. I think he placed an order 6 months ago. Something happened with Supras. Our local dealership here said it's still going to be quite a few months before we can get a Supra over to you. So he started scouring the country and actually picked this up in Louisiana. Now the funny thing about this car is it had this dealer protection package on it. So it does have front clear bra on the front that honestly doesn't look very good. It supposedly has ceramic coating on the exterior, on the interior. Hopefully we can strip all that off, especially on the interior, because leather materials are a little bit trickier to get ceramic coatings off than paint. Now, another thing I want to cover in today's video is doing a paint inspection on this. So after we get it washed, decontaminated, ready for paint correction, I just want to look at the paint and compare it to other vehicles that we featured recently on this channel, such as the Tesla Model 3 Performance, which in all honesty had pretty terrible paint, being that it is a 2024 car and still a $55,000 vehicle. Now I know a Supra and a Model 3 Performance are not really direct competitors, but maybe at the end of the day, they could be a little bit. A little bit of a sports car. Definitely the Model 3 Performance has more performance on paper, but the Toyota Supra having a manual with a BMW engine, a really interesting car. This is my first time ever working on a Toyota Supra, so join me as we get this thing completely dialed in. Let's start with a wash. We'll get it back into the detail bay, do a full paint inspection, analyze how many scratches, swirl marks, and kind of how nice this paint actually is, and then get all the defects fixed, do a full polish on it, ceramic coat the paint, ceramic coat the wheels, the glass, the trim, the interior. This is going to be a fun one, so let's jump into it. Just finished up the wash here on the Supra, and man, this thing is looking quite nice. Now I want to quickly go through a little bit of a paint inspection. Now I've done this off camera and honestly have to say pretty darn impressed. Of course, with any modern vehicle that is, largely manufactured, you do still have some orange peel in it. Of course, that's not really something that we see as having perfectly flat paint. A lot of these cars, of course, are painted by robot and very quickly. Now, the big point I want to emphasize here is when I do my build quality analysis and paint analysis videos here on this channel, I often really gripe about Tesla's paint. They have a ton of dust nibs in it, lots of little sanding marks, and issues like that. I'm not seeing much of anything here on the Supra, in all honesty. I've been around it a few times here, not a single sanding mark on here. Definitely some scratches, which could, of course be from the dealership. This obviously went to get paint protection film put on the front of it before it was delivered to the customer. But overall, the condition of this far exceeds something like a Tesla Model 3 that's sitting back over there. The paint definitely looks a lot better. Now, one thing I'm also noticing on this car though, there's a lot of plastic on it. And if you guys know, I've been kind of covering this topic and how different plastic panels look from metal panels, such as this whole quarter panel here compared to the bumpers. And it's no exception here for Toyota. Now, I hear people say all the time, oh, it's because it's plastic, they use different primers on it, but the paint color is literally different. The size of metallic is different. I understand that these things are painted at a different time, but there are companies out there, Porsche for one, that really absolutely nails this. So let's throw our scan grip light on here. I want to see if you can see this through the camera. It's very faint, but this almost looks a little bit more powdery blue. It has kind of more of a white metallic, where this is more solid blue. It's very hard to pick up there. You can really see it on that lower light. See how this kind of looks powdery? Then you go over here, bright blue. The metallic size is completely different, but honestly, the paint's looking pretty good. It's just, to me, annoying that these cars are painted by robots and they can't get bumpers to match and any other plastic accessories. This whole rear area here is all plastic. Now I can show you that on my paint meter. Of course, the rear bumper here, same thing going on, and you can see difference in color. This one is a little bit better than up here for sure, but yeah, definitely a different color. You really notice it on this little side piece here, especially when it's outside. Again, a little bit more powdery and then darker blue. It's very faint, very slight, but here with my lights, I can absolutely see it. This is just a totally different color blue, in all honesty. So that is definitely a little bit of a shame. But in all honesty, I'm pretty darn impressed with the paint quality here. It's not amazing, I'm not blown away with it going like, holy cow, this is absolutely perfect. But I would say definitely better than quite a few manufacturers I see. And I always say that Toyota is kind of a benchmark. They know how to paint vehicles. They do it quite well, and they produce a ton of vehicles a year. So my initial impression, definitely a lot better paint than something like Tesla Model 3 that we've been seeing recently out of the Fremont factory. There definitely are some issues with the clear bra on this one. Need to talk to the customer to see what he wants to do on this. He had told me he kind of wanted to remove it, but potentially leave it on. So gonna have that conversation. If we do take it off, I'll let you know. Seeing all of the typical issues here. We have lots of little impressions in there, lots of dirt, dust, everything. Not to mention kind of weird seams on this. You can see down here, all the edges, like that park distance sensor isn't even wrapped. This bumper is done in like 6 different pieces. Look at how off the marks are there. Yeah, this is not a good PPF install. You can really see how bad that is. And it's down to stretching. So not a high quality paint protection film install whatsoever here. So we'll talk to the customer, see what he wants to do. But you know, even just standing here, I can see this bumper is a different color than the actual hood. Let's just quickly look at it. Yeah, again, more of that powdery blue. Completely different metallic. It's so weird. It really comes through way more on camera. So one thing I want to quickly do here is run you through a paint meter thickness reading and just kind of see what Toyota's paint looks like compared to Model 3 Performance over there. See if it's a little bit more consistent, see how much paint is on this car, and then we'll get into paint correction, polish, all the ceramic coatings. Here we go with our paint meter. So just going to put this in the middle of the hood here. We have a 502. Most time what I like to see on a vehicle is between 4 to 6 mils. What I'm looking here for is consistency and thickness of paint. So anything really below like 3.5 starts to get a little concerning. Now this is reading all of the layers on the paint. So of course your clear coat, your actual color coat, your primer down to the metal. This little tip sends a signal down, hits the metal, bounces back up, takes that measurement. So 502 there. 473, that's pretty darn awesome if you ask me. 533, so looking reasonably consistent so far here on the hood. Not going to go crazy on this, I just want you viewers to see this. 409, so definitely a little low. 1.33 difference there. 393. Yeah, so honestly not super consistent. I mean, we're seeing quite a wide variation there. Almost 5 mils here on the roof. Roof's looking pretty decent. Let's see about the middle. Yeah, not bad at all. Let's come over here. 524. Yeah, so It's always hard when I do these because I start walking around the car and you guys hear me go, wow, this is consistent. And then I get to a panel and it's like, ooh, there's 4 mils there, but 1.33 more on the other side. I would really like to see these cars be slightly more consistent, of course, but I do understand they're not going for absolute perfection. The whole rationale for using a product like this is so I can see how much paint is on here in case we need to go after a deep scratch. And the whole intention is to remove as many defects as possible on here, making the paint near perfection, but still leaving paint for something to happen in the future and be repolished. So if I measure this, again, this is all plastic here. So coming over here to the passenger side fender, I think that was the highest reading we've seen so far, isn't it? Could be wrong. So it's interesting, you can see this NF here, ferrous, and this is non-ferrous. So 2 totally different metals there from the door to the roof. Let's see what this is. Ferrous. So it's really interesting. These are just little nerdy facts that I think about. When you're polishing paint, doing paint corrections, metals heat up differently, and especially bumpers heat up very, very differently. And also carbon fiber. So I take that all into consideration when I'm doing paint corrections. So in all honesty here with the Supra, I'm very pleased with the paint. It's not perfectly even throughout the entire vehicle, but I think it's a good representation of what a very decent paint job looks like. And yes, I would say this is better than the Tesla Model 3. If you haven't checked out that video, it's the one with the thumbnail with about 1,000 pieces of green tape all over it, where I pointed out every single dust nib. I haven't seen one yet on here. Not to say there won't be, it just depends on the lighting here, especially once we get down the sides doing our paint correction. I'll definitely point some other things out, but I see no signs of swirl marks that are terribly bad, just some dealer installed ones, but nothing really from the factory. That's the biggest thing I'm worried about. If we look here on the A-pillars, can see quite a few scratches in here. This is pretty common, and there's definitely some down the doors and things like that. I can see a few scratches in here, definitely around the handles a little bit. This side was kind of the worst part over here that I've seen so far, but in all honesty, pretty decent for a brand new car. Yeah, this area has definitely some scratches right in there. You can definitely see those there. So we'll get those all dialed in, but let's get our paint correction started. Let's get this blue paint looking as good as possible. And I'm gonna be in contact with my customer to see, what he wants to do with the clear bra on here, if he wants to leave it alone, if he wants to take it off. Doesn't matter to me. We'll see how that goes. So let's get polishing. Let's get this thing dialed. Apologies for the poor audio on this clip. The mics are dead, charging up right now, but just wanted to give you an update here on the Supra. So we got this thing all paint corrected now, and now it's of course time for its second wash and then onto wheels, then polish. So we're gonna get this thing foamed down. You can see all of the compound dust in here. It's just a mess compounding cars. Honestly, really happy with how this paint was to work with. Really nice. It was actually on the hard side of paint, but really got a lot of scratches out. No problem. I'd say we got 99% of all the heavy stuff out. So pretty thrilled with that. We're gonna do a quick engine bay detail here, but I'm gonna throw you guys on a time lapse. So let's get this thing cleaned up, get the wheels pulled, get them coated. We've made some substantial progress here on the Supra. Wanted to quickly take a pause in the time lapses, show you guys where we're at. So recently you just saw this car getting re-washed after compounding. Then we went into the wheel coating. So that's removing all the wheels on the vehicle, cleaning, coating, pretty much everything, as well as dialing in the suspension. You guys also saw me polish all of the paint. I am absolutely loving the paint on this. It's more on the hard side, which sometimes is kind of annoying, especially when you're compounding, especially when the car has a ton of deep scratches in it. You're just sitting there grinding and grinding and grinding on the paint. But honestly, the nice thing about that is compounding, if it's not super scratched, doesn't take so long, and then polishing is crazy quick. It's really more like a jeweling pass, if you will. Just trying to make sure we go all through the processes. It's not that big of a deal. Honestly, it didn't really need a polish, but that's just how I do things. Took me a couple hours, I think probably 3 hours total to get the whole paint polished. And we did polish up the clear bra as well. I had a conversation with the customer. We talked about it. We went back and forth and he said, you know what, let's leave the clear bra on here. I agree with that situation. It's on here. We can take it off in a couple years if it starts to drive him nuts. Already noticing a ton of bug stains on there, as well as just a pretty poor application in, silvering marks, stretch marks, edges not lining up. The template was really poorly done on this Supra, but we'll see what he thinks after it's all protected and coated. He lives with it for a little bit, then we can always take it off in the past, polish underneath there, recoat that, boom, no problem. Now I have done a few things off camera. One of the biggest things is the glass. Now with the glass, it was pretty water spotted with really the rest of the car. So what I did is I went through, did my full Brilliant Glaze treatment. Now this is a product made by Adams Polishes, has a lot of solvents in it. It is absolutely incredible for getting light water spots off, but importantly on the interior, getting all of that off-gassing haze off of there. It's kind of a boring process to watch, which is why I didn't really film it. And it does take a little bit of a time. I do have a dedicated video on how I use this product, but essentially what you do, take some Brilliant Glaze microfiber applicator, scrub it all over the windshield, inside and out, all of the side windows, rear hatch window here, get everything perfect, let it dry for about 15 minutes, Come back in with glass cleaner, boom, you're ready to go. Then I'll do another interior glass wipe down before the car leaves. Now on the exterior glass, we still need to coat this. So I wiped it down with 70% isopropyl alcohol. It's going to be prepped right after we coat the paint with Adams graphene glass coating. The other big thing I did was work on all of this little trim down here. All of these satin black splitters, diffusers, and side skirts on the side of the car. They were very water spotted, and that's the tricky thing with something like a matte finished surface. Now, for me, I can't really tell if this is a painted surface or if it's plastic that's meant to be look like a painted surface. It's a really interesting material there, but really water spotted. So I needed to go in there, get the chemicals off of there, get the minerals off of there. I tried some water spot removers. Those didn't seem to work. So I actually used Brilliant Glaze on it. And this is something that you can do in a dire need situation on satin or matte finished vehicles to get all of the water spots and minerals out. It will ever so slightly make it a little bit shinier, but honestly, hopefully, as you can see, it doesn't make it super shiny like gloss paint, but it does kind of deepen the effect of the matte or satin finished surface. So that's looking a lot better. So our next steps here, we're going to go in and prep the paint for ceramic coating using Geon Prep. The coating we're going to be using here today is Geon Infinite Base Type 1 on the paint, on the clear bra, and maybe on the splitters. I'm gonna need to play with it a little bit, inconspicuous area, apply some different coatings on there, see what I like the look and finish of best. This is, again, a tricky thing. I can't tell if it's plastic or it's painted. I don't want to use plastic coatings on there because it probably will streak, is just typical of what I've seen on a finish like this. I would probably say we're gonna go somewhere with like Adams Graphene Advanced Ceramic Coating. It seems to do really well on those satin finished surfaces, especially like wheels here. Doesn't make it shiny, looks absolutely perfect. Yes, you can use gloss coatings on matte finished surfaces, but if it's a full matte paint, you want to use matte coatings. So there is a little bit of playing around with this stuff that you guys don't always see on camera, but I did want to tell you what my plans are there. And then after we get this all coated, we're gonna get the glass coated, then all the little details come. Hitting the door jambs, making sure those are perfect, water spot free, compound dust free. Go into the engine bay, just make sure everything's looking perfect there. Dial in the glass, dial in the interior, get the seats coated, and this thing is ready to rock and roll. So let's jump into another time lapse, getting this thing prepped and ready for coating. join me late on a Sunday night with a fully finished Supra. I do really apologize I didn't film absolutely everything, but in all honesty, this car is leaving early in the morning, getting a little bit late now, and I kind of am ready to go home, so I didn't really have time to film everything. Filming the interior is hard enough as it is, and some of the clips just to go in, set up, talk about it was getting a little tricky. At the end of the day, a detail still has to get done. I am thrilled with how this paint came out. So let me show you guys this. Look at the metallic in this. Absolutely perfect. No scratches, no swirl marks, no water spots anywhere. Just is how it is. Now again, we do have the paint protection film over here. I'm not really satisfied with it in all honesty. I mean, I can easily see a clear difference where the film is compared to the paint. Probably not pulling up on camera quite as well, but in person, the paint's so much deeper and richer. Paint protection film, just in my impression, really takes away from it. That's just my personal opinion. All the piano black here, dialed in, perfectly coated. Really happy with that on the Infinite Base Type 1. We, of course, coated the glass. We didn't coat it, but this came out great. Interior is completely dialed in. One thing I'm not super thrilled with on this car, in all honesty, is all this rubber trim. I played and played and played with this. I cleaned it, I cleaned it, I cleaned it. Tried to put a little protection on it. It got splotchy on me, so I cleaned it back up again. Not really thrilled with that. So that's something I'd like to see improved on the Supras. In the interior, just went through, coated it. Basically did a quick wipe down. It didn't need a whole heck of a lot, but the seats look absolutely perfect now, fully coated. This was definitely not coated from the dealership. Seats had tons of stains all over it. They were really hard to scrub off. So hopefully this coating will help out the customer a lot more and really be able to wipe it off quite a bit easier. So not too much in the interior we did, but definitely got it dialed in. All the windows absolutely crystal clear inside. Also, as always, go through, clean up all the door jambs so they look absolutely perfect in there. Pretty thrilled with that. Let me open here the front hood. Quickly show you the engine bay underneath here. So again, we protected this with Geon wet coat. Of course, underneath the Supra here, the B58 engine. But the nice thing in here, everything's perfectly cleaned. Everything's perfectly protected now. Now, wet coat is not a super long-term product, but using this over and over, you know, every 6 months, every 3 months, whatever you see fit on your engine bay, spray it down with some simple clean, or even just foam it down and rinse it at this point. It's gonna stay perfectly clean. I don't like using dressings on engine bays, basically because they start to attract dirt, where this really repels it and just stays completely dust free. But super nice to see all of this plastic trim absolutely dialed. Everything in here perfectly clean, all protected. So pretty darn happy with that. Let's shut this down here. Man, this thing is truly looking awesome. One thing I didn't really show you guys was the wheels being coated afterwards. They came out amazing. Of course, we coated all the calipers. If you're wondering about the brake rotors being rusty there, pretty much every single time you wash a car like this, boom, they turn that color, hit the brakes once, it's all gone. I wish I could, you know, get all of that off. You can go in with brake cleaner and stuff. I just really don't like to do that, so I'd prefer to leave it. It will get some orange dust on the wheels here, but basically blows right off, so not a big deal because, of course, they are fully coated. One thing I'm sure you guys are curious about is basically all of this plastic down here. I did determine it is plastic. It's not really a painted plastic. It's kind of a weird material, but what I ended up doing, I tried Infinite Base Type 1 on it, did not like it at all. It just started streaking everywhere. So strip that off quickly. And then I actually coated with Adam's Graphene Advanced, and yeah, came out really good. So goes to show you can use, you know, a glossy paint coating on matte finished surfaces. So pretty much everything else just went through, dialed the whole car in, of course cleaned up exhaust tips, just got all the little areas. This area back here definitely really tricky to coat, not try and get it on the other paint coating. A little bit of a process to do that, but man, absolutely thrilled with this car. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna get some B-roll for you here of the Supra. But thanks so much for watching another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.